to the Talent Optimization Podcast, the go-to podcast for CEOs and HR professionals wanting to bridge the gap between the strategy and tactical implementation of talent optimization within their organizations. Through interviews, predictive index, and personal experience, your host, Tracy Shirk, helps you discover the facets of talent optimization from both a CEO and HR perspective to truly create the dream team for your organization. Are you ready? Let's get started.
Welcome to Talent Optimization. My name is Tracy Shirk, and I'm the Chief Talent Officer here at Elevated Talent Consulting. And we have a special treat for the next 2 weeks. And so often we talk about talent optimization and all the different disciplines of it in kind of chunks as standalone. And today and next week, we are chatting with one of our clients and how we actually implemented talent optimization in their business and their experience with that. So April Moldenhauer, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah. And so April is with Amwood Homes, and April has a really interesting story of how she entered into HR with Amwood and really grew an HR department from the ground up. So April, what do you want to share with us?
Yeah, I'll start with my story. So prior to Amwood Homes, I actually worked in Amazon. So I was in a bigger kind of corporation. This was my first journey in a family-owned business. And I've always had a background in operations. So I actually started as our operations manager at a production facility in Madison, Wisconsin. And I started in August of 20, which is quite a trying time if you look at the world and everything that was happening at that point. But on top of COVID and workforce challenges, we also had some operational challenges within the business. And one of those particularly was our production facility in Montezuma. So I'll just kind of start with the timeline. So March of 20, obviously COVID came. Building industry at that time really kind of went in a different direction. You were looking at people that started remodeling homes rather than building new homes. And that was a kind of an adjustment to the new life that everyone was living, working from home. And so then we ran a few different promotions with our customers and really got a major influx of orders. And so we're kind of like a fire hose, right? Where you had all these orders in the hose that were somehow trying to make their way out. And so that was really the summer of 2020 in our story. Then comes along August of 20, and August of 20, it was, I believe, August 10th, a Draco storm went through Iowa, as I'm sure many of you remember. And basically that is
Draco?
I was just going to say, so a Draco is kind of described as an inland hurricane. So kind of a mix between a hurricane and a tornado, but really, really strong winds. And so in the matter of 15 minutes, we had a plant destroyed in Iowa. So at the time we had 2 production facilities, one in Madison, one in Toledo, Iowa. And like I said, in the matter of 10 minutes, we were down to 1 plant with an influx of orders. So trying to balance that time, I stepped in 2 weeks after the storm happened. And operationally, I really focused on how we increase capacity in Madison. And when you look at that, you really do that 2 ways, right? One is increase efficiencies and productivities. The other is increase the team members that you have on your team. And so quickly put on an HR hat and looked at recruiting and staffing and really the best way to optimize our operations and continue to grow our customer experience. And so that was kind of my original journey.
So we've got April of 2020. So COVID just hits. We have folks scared to death to come into work because of what the news cycles are stating. We've got a plant that just disappeared overnight, or the middle of the day. And then we've got never really having an HR department. There was new leadership that was just brought in. How is staff morale?
Staff morale, I really think the masks impacted staff morale in so many different ways. You know, you looked at just your daily connection wasn't there. You know, people came in and did their job, but I would say satisfaction was really down in the dumps. You know, you had break rooms that were spaced out. You didn't have that camaraderie amongst employees. Then you add the mask and you lack that verbal connection and nonverbal connection with people. And so I wouldn't say it was poor, but I also wouldn't say it was great. I think the biggest downfall we had was our onboarding experience. So you had people coming into an organization that didn't know people, didn't have a means to connect with people in the break room, didn't have team member cookouts anymore because we weren't, that just wasn't a normal thing with COVID. And so it was really all the walls of getting to know your teammates gone. And so we really had to look at how do we bring people into the organization and optimize why they want to be here for us. And so we looked at it very differently, and we looked at our position title. So what were we recruiting for? And initially I started with assemblers, and that's kind of the job title. We were truss assemblers. But really, when you look at the meat of what we do, we're framers. So we are trying to attract a talent of people that are framing out in the field and bringing them just indoors. And so they're framing inside rather than working in outside all of the elements. So
and there's some positives to that in Wisconsin.
Yeah. So we changed our job title to really highlight what we do and highlight the position in itself. Then we looked at compensation, right? Market analysis. And that was kind of multi-factor. So we looked at what was our base pay? How were we advertising that base pay? What was our referral bonus for our employees? Again, we know one of the best ways to bring people into an organization is through referral. Not only do they truly know the inside of the organization, but they have that buddy, that natural connection that keeps them engaged every single day. And then we looked at sign-on bonus. So I think we quickly saw at the end of summer for 2020, sign-on bonuses went from $200 maybe at most to upwards to $10,000 for some truck driving positions. So trying to balance what was the right way to implement that and the right amount. So we ended up doing a combination of a sign-on and retention bonus. So we have it built out that it starts now and kind of goes progressively through the year. And I will say that brings a lot of natural conversation. People come up to their supervisors and say, when's my next payment coming? So I think it just kind of naturally builds that connection and conversation between manager and supervisor/employees.
Yeah, I love how you said that, like these unintended consequences, right, of the policies that we put in place. So we want to create retention and we want to create camaraderie. We didn't think that a retention bonus was going to create camaraderie throughout the year. And yet those are some of those unintended bonuses that are a gift from COVID, right? That we can say, okay, we're going to keep this thing.
Right. And we've kind of done some friendly, recognition and competition amongst the team too, of someone that recognizes a certain number of employees, let's celebrate that. So again, it's a way for us to think differently about how our team members feel engaged to work at Amwood every day. And I think that's one thing that's been lost specifically for us in our corporate environment is that day-to-day office talk, right? The talk at the coffee pot that used to occur, that now all of our team is remote, and you lose that sense of, hey, what did Sally do over the weekend? And we're trying to build some of that back in. And I would say 2020/2021, we had a really strong focus on production. And now as we head into 2022, it's looking at total organization. How do we rebuild from a very quick change and pivot to go remote for something that's never happened in our organization in the past?
Yeah. And so what have you learned?
Yeah, I think I learn every day. Every day I continue to have conversations with employees, and I hear different things. First off, depending on the location, I also think depending on the department. And I think that brings a big learning in itself, that everyone's different. And so when you look at your employee culture and recognition, how do you have that tailored for everybody? Some people want the big recognition where they have their name posted on a PowerPoint across the business that everybody sees and can celebrate maybe a success that they have. Other people want something that's more intimate. I want a handwritten thank you note that's left under my keyboard that no one else sees, but feels really meaningful to me in my heart. So one thing that we also did that I should have mentioned earlier was we created core values at the end of 2020. And so that was really mission critical in our organization to say, what is the foundation of our business and what do we as a team stand for? And so we created 8 different core values: foster integrity, delivering a positive customer experience, commit to the plan, practice good health, safety, and well-being. So we looked at all of those as our foundation. And ultimately, in turn, this year, we'll actually be creating a team member culture committee. So looking at those core values, that's the heartbeat of our business. And how do we really integrate those into our business? And so one of our tasks as our core value culture committee will be looking at what are events we want to have every single month. So is it a team member luncheon? Is it a potluck? Is it just simply celebrating St. Patrick's Day with cupcakes in the break room? What are those different events that we can do that either bring people from remote work into the office just to celebrate, to grab a treat, to see their coworkers, or also, how do we recognize our team members at home? So it's kind of one of those that naturally forces us to have those conversations with team members on our team that are working in many different environments, saying, what do you want? Here's your platform for us to gather feedback and a plan for us to execute too. So it kind of goes hand in hand where it naturally holds us accountable.
And what I love about this is you're including individuals regardless of where they're at. And the fact that you have 3 locations on top of remote, because some folks just have to be there because if you're building trusses, guess what? You have to do that in framing them out. You have to do that in the plant. But the other thing that, I really heard you say throughout this is, what your business strategy is. And the business strategy changed a bit through 2020, through 2021. So you shifted that, but you're also crystal clear on what your business results are and what that culture looks like within it, because that has a direct impact on the people and the people that you bring in, how you nurture your folks, how you grow your folks, and what their needs are, right? And so for most folks listening to our podcast, they know that we're a huge proponent of predictive index, and predictive index tells you what they want in a way that you can actually go back to them and say, hey, April, I believe from, what we've talked about that this is what you want. Is that, and how am I doing with that?
And I think too, Tracy, you hit right there with one. We have had very strategic and critical conversations in our business as far as direction and what our employee value proposition is. And that's tied directly into the hire program. And that was the foundation of what we did, is we built off of week 1 to say, who are our people? Who's our team? Who's in our org chart? What is our employee value? What do we want to be known for? And if let's say it's flexibility. Flexibility looks different in every asset of the business. We have remote workers that have more flexibility being at home. We have production workers, but they have the flexibility compared to other manufacturing environments to know that their hours are X, Y, and Z rather than all over the board, or working Saturdays or working nights, right? So looking at one value that we stand for within the organization and how that fits in different departments, locations, and team members. So I think really that was the foundation of the hire program. And then we went into descriptions of roles, right? And I think that was, again, kind of another critical conversation that we're actively having today to say, what are the roles in our business today? And really getting a foundation of those and building out and updating job descriptions. I think when you haven't had HR as a natural kind of leader within the organization for 40 or 50 years, you don't have visibility to those changes. You don't have visibility to role dynamics that naturally changed when you went remote, or you added a new team member because it was a needed position, but now that changed someone else's role, right? And so over time, as we've started to build out job descriptions in the organization, I even start getting comments to say, well, April, we need to update that job description now because of the X, Y, and Z. So you're starting to see value from other leaders understanding how job descriptions really build the foundation. And step 2 beyond that is now next year, we have these roles, right? These are our foundation, but now what roles don't we have that we need that are going to really help us achieve that direction that we're headed?
Yeah. And with those roles that you're creating, sometimes it's saying, what's our talent pathway? So folks that want to grow within the organization know what that pathway is, especially if we have some introverted team members that aren't going to come ask. They just want to pull up the document and say, okay, how do I win in this position? And what do I need to do if growth is a priority for me? What does winning look like here? What does winning look like in the next level position? And what do I need to do to get there? Because we have so many folks that don't want to ask because we've built this YouTube culture, right? I'll just look it up and figure it out myself. And so we also have to provide that back to our team members in a way that works for them. And it's not everybody, because we're all created differently, but we're all created perfectly the way we are, but we're not created perfectly for every job.
Yep, absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
So kind of looking at this journey that you've taken, and, we lovingly kind of call this, how do you optimize the people inside your organization while hitting those business results? What have you seen as kind of that big aha?
I would say, so for us, I think one of the biggest ahas we had was when we were trying to hire for our production people. And I wasn't getting candidates, right? And again, we're in a very tough market. This is 5 months after COVID. You still have the unemployment stimulus going on. You have people that are still afraid to come into work. And so what we did was we looked at 5 key metrics. We looked at job title, we looked at location, and specifically for our Madison facility, we looked at the bus line, like how are people transitioning to work? Then we looked at schedule. So kind of location and schedule go hand in hand, but what are the hours that we expect our team to work? And I will tell you, our schedule was 5:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. Like that's a 50-hour work week, first off. And second off, 5:30 in the morning, like people don't want to naturally work that early, and as you talk about people's natural tendencies, some people are morning people, some people are night people. And right there, we automatically screen anybody that doesn't want to get up at 5:30 in the morning. So had that critical conversation. Then we looked at benefits. So we talked about culture, but how do we attract people with our benefits? And benefits are so much more than just health benefits, right? So we looked at our vacation policy. We looked at offering an employee assistance program to our team. We looked at redoing our handbook, like having clear structure and expectation for our team. We looked at so many different facets within benefits, and we added different benefits when we talk about the health benefits as well. We added in flex spending, we added daycare flex spending, things that people have never had the option to have before. So again, comes at a small expense to the business, but when you look at ultimately the results it's going to drive, you have people that are engaged, you naturally pay for that, right? And so making sure that we had some of those critical conversations. And the fifth one was growth plan. So looking at the foundation of how people naturally grow within our organization. And one of the aha things that I had was when I put all of that together, every single year, I look at those 5 things, right? And so this year, I'm looking at benefits again as I'm reviewing our handbook for the next year and going, time for a maternity leave and parental leave policy, right? And so looking at some of those and going, okay, how do I have that foundation? So, at the time I was just like, okay, I've got to change a few things to make us start getting candidates. And unironically, it was all the foundation of every single question we need to ask ourselves every single year.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. So as we kind of go to close today, and we're going to tease next week too, by the way, what's a key takeaway that you have for our CEOs and our executives listening into our conversation today?
I think one of the biggest takeaways is how do you bridge the gap between yourself and your supervisors and even beyond your supervisors down to your team? And I'm so excited because next week we'll be bringing on a team member from our team that actually left our facility when we had the derecho storm in Iowa. He came to Montezuma for a short period of time and then left shortly after that. And ironically just came back and joined our team about 2 months ago. And so Dave tells a really good story as far as how he's connected beyond his production peers, but with his supervisors, with his leaders, with his director of HR, with his CEO and beyond. And how, think critically when you walk through, are you setting the expectation of culture that you want your supervisors to drive every single day? And that includes saying hi to the team, making sure that they have safety gear. But on top of that, making sure you're wearing your PPE as well. So really setting that expectation and that tone to say, hey, I'm here to help support you. Like I'm driving this safety culture, not because I want you to be safe, because I want our family here as a team to be safe. And that includes me, right? We're all in this together. So I think it's a matter of breaking down some of those silos, but really setting the tone to say, this is the culture that we want every single day.
I love it. So for your HR peers that are listening in today, what's the key takeaway that you have for them?
Yeah. So obviously coming from the operations background, I'm driven by data. That is something that I am just accustomed to in my prior roles and experiences. I think when I came into the HR role, I really had to ask myself, like, what is the data we're looking at? I have a team and I have people, but do I have their expectations? Do I have a job description? Do I know what they want? Like what are their natural tendencies? So when you think about your people, it's so much more than just a person, right? It's what they want. It's their desires. It's their expectations. It's their natural traits. It's their natural tendencies. So look at yourself, look at your organization and say, how do I have data on my people? Because data is one of the most powerful tools you can have, not only to make sure that you continue to move your business forward, but to build teams that you need, right? And when you look at HR, one of our strategic goals is building teams that optimize results. And so you need data in order to be able to optimize teams.
Awesome. Love it. Thank you so much for not only coming on today, but the work that we've done over the last couple of years, because it's been so fun and watching you grow into your role has been just amazing. So with that being said, if you are listening in and you're curious about the Hire program that April had talked about, we have a new cohort of that program starting in May. And so there is information in the show notes on that. And if you want data, we have a link so that you can get some free data as well. So with that being said, join us next week as we have a conversation with Dave and learn a little bit more about his story and his journey from the employee perspective. And have a fantastic rest of your week. Thanks so much.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Talent Optimization Podcast. You'll find more tools and resources for CEOs and HR professionals looking to bridge the strategies versus implementation gap of talent optimization at elevatedtalentconsulting.com. We've also created a free, valuable resource for you to begin bridging the gap called the Talent Optimization Foundation Membership Program. You can access it for free at elevatedtalentconsulting.com/foundation. Be sure to tune in next week for another episode to learn more about talent optimization and creating a dream team for your organization.